The Pope Francis death, the more that you look at it, the wilder it gets. Because at this point, we might not just be talking about Pope Francis' death. We might be talking about the last Pope. And all the signs are there.
Today we're looking at TikTok videos that will make you rethink everything.
Kanye West essentially is saying White Lotus ain't got nothing on me.
Yes, he is very openly in a new song describing a incestuous relationship that he says he had with a male cousin when they were teenagers.
So if you guys didn't know, yesterday the Pope died, which is crazy because he died after Easter. So let's just have a moment of silence for the Pope. Today we're going to look at some conspiracy theories behind how he died and the reason why he died. So make sure to stick around for that. Let's try to get to 2,000 likes this video. So if you're seeing this video right now, just like it. Let's try to get to 2,000. And the scariest part about these videos, it says that 70% of you guys are not subscribed. So make sure to smash that subscribe button. And as y'all know, these videos do get intense, so watch at your own risk. Let's go!
This is a real thing. A woman took a nearly empty bus home and sat behind a man who was rummaging through his bag. She watched as he slyly took out a mobile phone that didn't seem to be his. Moments later, he quickly moved seats and, using the same trick, stole another woman's phone. A third man on the bus noticed the suspicious behavior, stepped in immediately, and caught the thief. He insisted on taking the man to the police station and asked both women, the victims, to come along for evidence and identification. The four of them got off the bus and started walking toward the nearest station, which led them through a remote tunnel near a quiet, scenic area. As they passed through the tunnel, the second woman and the man who had claimed to be a brave bystander suddenly blocked the first woman's path. Confused, the woman barely had time to react before the thief, who had seemingly been restrained, came up from behind and pressed a cloth over her face. The strong chemical quickly knocked her unconscious, and she collapsed. In the silence of the night, the three conspirators lifted her into the trunk of a parked car nearby. What appeared to be a random act of theft had been a setup from the start. The thief, the supposed hero, and the second woman were all working together. Within moments, the car disappeared into the darkness.
The world's largest iceberg is now on a collision course with a British island. So here's what you need to know. Imagine if you put 5 New York cities together and chucked it in the ocean. That is the size of iceberg A23A. Not a very fun name, I know, but scientists. Anyway, it broke off from Antarctica decades ago, but it was always stuck on the sea floor. Until recently. At first, it started moving slowly. But once it got the currents and the winds behind it, our big boy started moving. And now scientists are anxiously checking satellite images every day because it's on course to smash into South Georgia. Georgia in the US, Georgia in Europe, you're both fine, not talking about you. South Georgia is a remote British island with no permanent residents, but is full of wildlife. So scientists are worried that birds, seals, and penguins could be in danger. I mean, look at them! Look at what's at stake here. Oh, and this also might be the final resting place for our big boy A23A. Because the further he drifts north, the more he melts away and pieces break off. R.I.P. to a big boy.
We're also following a scary incident at Orlando International Airport in Florida. That is where a Delta Airlines flight experienced an engine fire just moments before a scheduled takeoff earlier today. According to the airport, 282 passengers were on board. Some of them had to evacuate using the plane's emergency slides. Police are now on the scene investigating.
Dude, what's going on lately? There's so much aviation incidences, is actually crazy. And it's always Delta too. Like Delta flipped and now their engine exploded. I mean, I can't say always Delta because there's some other ones that wasn't only just Delta.
The Pope Francis death, the more that you look at it, the wilder it gets. Because at this point, we might not just be talking about Pope Francis' death. We might be talking about the last Pope. And all the signs are there. So let's start from this. The death certificate said that Pope Francis died from a stroke and a heart failure. But then at the same time, they said he was in a coma. A coma, bruh? Now we seen Pope Francis on Easter Sunday, waving at the crowd, giving little blessings, talking and doing all this stuff, y'all. He even met with J.D. Vance. And then the next day, he's gone? How was he in a coma if he met with J.D. Vance that night? Y'all ever notice that powerful people meet right before something major happened? Let that sink in for a second. Why J.D. Vance? Why was he the one to go meet with the Pope. They say they were talking about humanitarian stuff. But why JD Vance? I'm just asking the questions, y'all. He meets with him. The next day, he's gone. JD Vance even seemed to notice that he was in better health. Because y'all remember, he was in the hospital for 38 days with double pneumonia. That's what they had said. And y'all remember, it was times where all the news outlets was saying that he was going to pass that one night where he just got so sick, so ill. People was praying for him. And he made it through the next day. People was like, it's a miracle. They said he even had nights where he was choking on his own vomit, y'all. And he overcame all of that. They said they wanted him to rest for 2 months because he was going to be extremely ill still. But he said, no, I'm finna do God's work. I'm finna go out Easter. I'm feeling good. I feel great, actually. He felt great enough to go on the Pope Mobile. He felt great enough to give people blessings, to even have a little meeting with JD Vance. And all of a sudden, he's gone. Now, let's get into this prophecy part. In the 1500s, St. Malachy made a list of 112 popes. He said it will only be 112. And after the 112th one passes, there will be no more. That's it, y'all. He said the end of time, judgment day, Rome falls. So do y'all want to guess the number that Pope Francis was? Malachy said the final pope will be known as Peter the Roman, that he will lead the church into tribulations, chaos, and destruction. And some say that Francis was Peter in disguise, Jesuit, but Latin American, but took the name Francis from Saint Francis of Assisi, who was born in Rome. So y'all tell me, is that a reach or is that the road? So with all of this taking place this year, y'all remember he opened the holy door too. The holy door is like a spiritual reset switch. And the church only opened them during rare jubilee years. A lot of people say when he opened the door, he welcomed people in to make it to the other side, for people to ask for forgiveness and etc. But then you got people that said when that door opened, that was the judgment. So around that same time that he opened the holy door, it was talks, whispers, that he also was gone down in the Vatican vault where he was not supposed to go. It's an underground archive that holds forbidden text, and it is locked, and it's supposed to be sealed. But like I said, I heard the whispers that he was finna unlock some of them documents. We're gonna play the hypothetical, because like I said, I don't know if it's real or not, but that's what I heard. But what if he did in fact go down to that vault and he seen some things that he was finna share with the world? And before he could do that, he ultimately passed. So let's lay this out. The death certificate said coma, but we all seen him alive the day before. A meeting with JD Vance said they were talking about humanitarian stuff. No full explanation other than that. Early on, he opened the holy doors. They say he started looking into the Vatican vault. And then boom, he's gone now. And the prophecy said that he will be the last pope. So if Pope Francis was the 112th pope, and there's supposedly not supposed to be another one, what comes after that, y'all? They didn't say it, but what do you think? So can y'all believe it was just a peaceful death? Or can you ask yourself, why him? Why after he met with JD Vance? And why after Easter Sunday? The prophecy said that Peter the Roman will lead during destruction. So if Pope Francis was really that guy, then the clock is already ticking, y'all. Stay woke.
I don't know, maybe Pope Francis just didn't like Trump, because isn't there a video of like Trump like trying to touch his hand and he just slaps his hand away? I'm gonna see if I can put it in right now. But I'm not sure, like the conspiracy theories behind his death is kind of weird because there's no way he died from a coma, but then he was active on Easter. Would that even count as a coma?
Scientists claim to have discovered a new color that no one has ever seen before. This study used a laser to stimulate only M cones because generally when light hits our eyes, it stimulates all the cones. But when they stimulated only one of the cones that we have in our eyes, they would make the brains of people see color that has never been seen before. And they named this color Olo for some reason, which you can't see unless you do this specific experiment. But like, this is something that is a pretty big breakthrough because, you know, it really sort of challenges how our brains and our eyes combine to see the world that we live in. Now, these researchers used this laser with a pulsing firing into people's eyes.
Fun fact, it's much more likely there will be an air rage incident on planes where the economy passengers have to walk past the first class seats to get to their seats at the back of the plane versus when the first class and economy passengers board the plane separately. And surprisingly, it doesn't just make the economy passengers mad, but the first class passengers too. A study from the University of Toronto looked at millions of flights from around the world to figure out why do people experience air rage. And they found that having a first class section on the plane was one of the biggest indicators that there would be an air rage incident. And the researchers controlled for almost every possible variable that could make people mad. Delays, not enough legroom, someone watching videos on their phone at full volume, but they were able to prove without a doubt that planes with a first class section caused air rage. Airplanes are like a compact version of society, and it's very obvious where everyone falls on the social ladder based on where they're seated. And this inequality is just thrown in people's faces, which leads to people feeling unfairness and inferiority, which turns into anger, aggression.
Kanye West essentially is saying White Lotus ain't got nothing on me.
Yes, he is very openly in a new song describing a incestuous relationship that he says he had with a male cousin when they were teenagers. The song that he dropped today is called Cousins. Now, we're going to play a little bit of it for you. There's a whole explanation of how this relationship started, but this is what he's claiming. And again, we're used to hearing outrageous things from Kanye.
In other words, translation, we don't know what's true and what isn't.
Right, but here's what he's saying in the song.
Well, you can kind of figure that out.
Yeah.
So, look, we don't know. He has been off the rails now for months. I mean, not weeks, for months. And, you know, is this real? Maybe.
This is a cousin he's referred to before. This is a cousin he says is actually doing time. He's in prison now for murdering someone. And he's talked about that cousin in public before.
But not about this.
But never about this alleged relationship between them.
Yeah, Kanye's social media has kind of been hinting that he wants to reveal some things lately. Yeah, we don't know if it's true or not, but the song, you know, really does go into detail about what happened. You know, he's been hinting that his mom may have been a lesbian, and they discovered some magazines that, you know, led them to experiment on each other, him and his cousin.
We should explain because we had to censor some of it, but what he was saying was that the magazines that he found in his mom's room or somewhere in the house showed gay sex, and that he and his cousin decided they wanted to try some of it is, and I wonder I don't know where his cousin is incarcerated.
Is it possible, look, we don't know, but is it possible that all of the talk about White Lotus, because
made him feel like I want to say something that's going to,
whether it's true or not true, that he tapped into it? Because that's what he's done. I mean, with Trump, he tapped into it. With other things, with Kim, he tapped into it. And it's like,
I don't know. It's so hard.
Well, we don't know if it's true, but it does sound like he's going to deliver more messages in his music going to line. This is just the first of the latest album that he plans on releasing. So.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch, it looks like he is now back with Bianca Censori. You
Yeah.
know that they had gone to divorce lawyers. In fact,
They've gone to divorce lawyers
3 times he's been since October.
Right, and then he dropped a song last month that basically, or earlier this month, where he was begging Bianca to come back to him, and apparently it worked because they were seen together in Spain, going to a restaurant. I don't know if this means that everything is back hunky-dory with them, but and
she's clothed.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, it's relevant.
There's a difference there, yeah.
It's totally relevant. Is this Madrid?
Mallorca.
Mallorca?
Yeah.
Look, she has been to a divorce lawyer, we know, at least once. He's been 3 times. At least 2 of the 3 said, I'm not going to represent you.
Right.
Because they just didn't want to. A third, he was going to file for divorce, and that fell apart and decided not to. So we know of all of those, and there may be more.
Right.
But
for now,
it looks like
they're at least doing dinner together.
They're doing dinner.
Dude, Kanye is hilarious. That is hilarious. This is why I love my job. That's why I love reacting to you guys. Because, like, what? He just admits to... I wonder how his cousins feel for real. Like, his cousin probably sitting there saying, like, what is this dude saying? Like, Kanye knows what he's doing, though. I feel like he's smart enough to know what he's doing, and I feel like he's genuinely doing it for, like, something. Like, I don't necessarily think he's going crazy like people think he is. I think he's doing it for a reason, but I don't really know the reason. You know what I'm saying? I think he's genuinely a smart dude, but I feel like there's something deeper that's going on right here.
This was released yesterday. These are the UFOs that Jake Barber and his team at Skywatch were filming. These are the people that are saying that they're using psionic capabilities, like telepathic capabilities, to summon these crafts. And this is the first time that they're releasing any video from it. People have been waiting on it since he announced it back in maybe, I don't know, last couple months. But you can see they're making impossible movements, disappearing and reappearing. And you can see this one's called the Class 8 Hornet. And yeah, so people are like disappointed. They're saying it's too grainy, you can't tell what it is. This is their first time releasing the video, so there's more to come. They're still doing their job. They are actually summoning these things. But yeah, just wanted you guys to check it out. It was just released yesterday. Somebody mentioned they wish they knew where these were filmed at. I agree, I wish so too, but here it is.
A strange man jumps into a cab past midnight, and something about him is deeply unsettling. The driver glances in the mirror, his hands tighten on the wheel. Something feels wrong. To shake the tension, the driver casually asks what he does. Without hesitation, the man says he's the President of the United States. The driver's heart pounds. Did he hear that right? The President in his cab at 2 a.m.? Minutes later, they stop in front of a massive, gated mansion. The driver refuses to leave until the President is safely inside. Says the area isn't safe at night. The man hesitates. A security guard steps out, eyes narrowing. The man leans in and whispers something. The guard blinks, then sighs. "Come in, Mr. President." As the cab leaves, the guard suddenly pulls out his gun and asks, "Who the hell are you?" Because moments ago,
Pope Francis has been pronounced dead, tragically passing away this morning, shocking the world as Easter, one of the most religious days of the year, was his last day on earth. But do you remember the prophecy of popes that said Pope Francis would be the final pope before the end of the world? We need to discuss that. The Vatican heartbreakingly confirmed his death, saying he died at 7:30 this morning after his lifelong struggle with double pneumonia. He was in and out of the hospital all year and actually had a part of his lung removed when he was younger. He was the 266th pope and maybe the last ever. He had a refreshing take on LGBTQ advocacy. He actually cared about climate change and wanted to protect the earth. And he had so much compassion for all humans. It's actually crazy because he addressed literally the whole world just hours before his death, giving his blessing on Easter. But it's more insane that one of the last people to ever see him alive was J.D. Vance. They were supposed to have an even longer meeting, but it was cut short because of his condition. But in the months leading up to his death, he was scrutinizing the Trump administration for their stance on immigration deportation policies. I mean, and how can we forget the iconic video of him swatting away Donald Trump's hand and putting him in his place and then walking away? But we should all be scared, because in a terrifying prophecy, literally titled The Prophecy of the Popes, written by Saint Malachy. In 1959, so this is like 5 centuries old, they listed each name and description of every single pope ever, with the final one written down being Pope Francis, and prophesied that he would be the strong leader who would get us through dark and tumultuous times where other horrible leaders in the world were trying to take the world down with them, and that he would get us through, but right after he met his end, we would all meet our end, and it would lead to the destruction of Rome and the onbringing of the final judgment. There's literally so many books written about this, and since we are in this world where terrible leaders are being elected and just destroying everything, I wouldn't be surprised if this came true. So good luck, everyone.
Yeah, that's hilarious. See, I told y'all he didn't like Trump. You see how he did look. I mean, I put it in at this like earlier, but like now we got to see bro talk about it, and like I don't know. Now I'm confused. You see how he just said like the Pope died from double pneumonia, but the other dude said he died from a coma.
Hey guys, so I have another story for you. This is an older story. I've shared it before. I'm going to condense it down to one video. This is probably without question the spookiest call I've ever been on in my law enforcement career, and I hope it never gets topped. But anyhow, it was several years ago. I was on the overnight shift. It was like 4 o'clock in the morning. It was around Halloween time, so it's already got that spooky season feel. This elderly gentleman who lived out in the country, he drove to town for whatever reason and went to this 24/7 gas station, asked the clerk if he could use the phone to call 911. The clerk, of course, said yes. He calls 911 and tells dispatch something along the lines of like, my wife's missing or she's been kidnapped or something, yada, yada, yada. And to have the officer meet me at our residence. So I go to the residence, and as I pull up and I get out, I don't see any red flags, if you will. Normally in a situation like this, you would see or hear some commotion. You would have something standing out to you. I'm not getting that. It looks very calm, very quaint. I don't know what I'm really walking into at this point. I have terrible officer awareness. I walk up the driveway and I pass his truck, and he hops out of the truck behind me, and as I turn around, he's got a handgun. And he's extremely agitated and upset and emotional at the fact that his wife is missing or kidnapped or whatever it was. So after a few minutes of coaxing the handgun from him and make it safe, I put it on the hood of his truck. I'm like, okay, talk to me, what's going on? And he says, okay, follow me to the house. So I follow him to the house, and as he gets to the door, he says, and I will never forget this, he says, do you believe in God? And I said, yes, I do. And he says, good. And that means you believe in the devil. And I'm like, what the? What? So he opens the door. He says, forgive me for all the candles. He says, that's the only way we can keep it out or something like that. And there's no candles, but yet he's tiptoeing through the living room like he doesn't want to step over these mysterious candles. There's no candles. So as I'm walking in the living room and all the furniture's gone, it's just an empty room. Like, I don't know if they're moving or they just moved in. It's just completely bare and empty. Although at every window around the home, I see a rifle or a shotgun, and I see spent shell casings and bullet casings. And I'm like, hey, bro, what's up with this? And he said, oh, I've been shooting out at these demons outside all night, trying to keep them out from coming in the house. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, well, we're not going to have that right now. So he lets me make all of his firearms safe, and talking to him, trying to figure out where his wife may be. And then we're in this cabin-esque home, and there's a loft, and I see above us his elderly wife comes to the edge of the loft, and she's wearing this white, like, robe, you know, like something Ebenezer Scrooge would wear. A little creepy looking, you know, and she's just standing there staring down at us. And I'm like, all right, she seems sensible. I'm going to go upstairs. I'm going to talk to her, because obviously he's the issue, and we need to get him some mental health treatment. So I'm like, hey, I found her. And he's like, oh, that's great news. That's great news. You know, he's all excited. He's calmed down now. He's like, she's safe. She's sound. Good to go. So I'm like, we should be in and out in 5 minutes. So as I walk up the steps, I go up there and I talk to her, and I'm like, hey, ma'am, your husband's having some mental health issues. And she's like, I know. And she's like, I don't know what to do with him. I'm like, I get it. You know, boys will be boys, but I'm going to have to take him to the hospital. And I'm like, I'm going to probably need you to help me out and, you know, convince him to go with me. And I think we're on the same page, and all of a sudden she says, am I in trouble? And I'm like, no. Why would you be in trouble? And she's like, well, I'm curious. And I'm like, well, he's not in any trouble either. But why did you say, are you in trouble? Like, there's something not right about how she said it. And she said, well, because I fed it. I'm like, fed what? She's like, I was feeding the devil babies. And I'm like, what? Like, I get it. He's having a mental health issue, but it's very rare, if not impossible, in my opinion, to have two people having both the same mental health issues. And I'm like, run that back again. And she said, I stole babies, and the only way I could keep the devil happy and away from us, because he broke into the home, was to throw them over the loft, because I'm only safe when I'm up here, elevated, and the devil's down there. I throw the babies over the loft or the balcony, and the devil feeds them. Or I feed the devil. But the problem is he won't leave me alone now. He's attached to me, and I'm like, okay, you know what? Actually, I'm going to go back down and talk to your husband. He's the more sensible one. I'm like, I'm never sleeping again. So I go down the steps. I talk to the husband. I'm like, bro, both you and your wife are going to have to take a trip with me to the hospital. And he is now freaking out. He's trying to run outside. I don't know why. I'm trying to wheel him in. I'm like, dude, I don't want you to go out there. It's pitch black. It's the middle of the night. Like, what is it out there that you need to do? And he's like, I need to get the devil away. I need to get the devil away from my house. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, the devil is throwing the babies into the fire. And I'm like, what? And he said the demons are dancing around the fire, and the devil is in the middle, and he's throwing the babies in the fire, and it's making the fire bigger, and I have to go put out the fire. And I'm like, bro, come back to reality. There is nothing out there. I am looking, and it is pitch black out there. And he's like, oh, you messed up. He's like, you just pissed them off. They're all looking at you now. And he's like, oh, they're running over here. They're running over here. And I'm like, well, shut the shades. Like, I shut the shades, and I'm like, now I'm wigging out. And I'm like, all right, look, we need to come back to reality. Luckily at that time, another deputy shows up. The ambulance shows up. We both convince them to go to the hospital and get some mental health treatment. They do the same thing at the hospital. The doctor's like, I'm going to send him away, and hopefully we can get this fixed. They went away for a few days. They came back, and I never dealt with them again. I never had to go to the house again. Sadly, I did hear that the elderly lady later passed on a few years later. But to this day, I've never had a call where both people were suffering from the same delusion. And in my opinion, there was something extra sinister involved there that's beyond what medicine or therapy could solve, if you will. But I want to know your thoughts. Tell me what you think. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Dude, what I'm thinking is, why the heck do they have guns? He said there was a gun at every window. Like, why do people with mental health issues, how did he get evaluated for guns? That's hella dangerous, dude.
I get my messaging to follow you, but you're hitting double strangers. Come on.
Oh my God, what is this 9-month cruise and why did people go on it? So for those of you who haven't seen yet, Royal Caribbean has promoted a 9-month cruise. Basically for this cruise, you go to like 60 plus countries. You can buy it in segments. So you can go see like all the Americas, all of Asia, all of Europe. Like they basically just have it so that you're on a ship for 9 straight months just going and touring the world. I did not know anything about this. We're a big cruise family, okay? And I'm shocked that we didn't hear anything about this. But I'm more shocked that people, like, actually went on this 9-month cruise. Obviously, I'm starting to already hear drama about it. Mind you, this cruise just took off like last month or something like that. I'm already hearing constant drama about it, about racism on the ship, about elitism on the ship. Some people are getting to go at a town hall meeting some little fake government on the Royal Caribbean. What are you guys doing? And also on top of that, this sounds like some sort of book, social experiment, something that's gonna come out and be in somebody's psych class in a couple years. Because there is no way that you thought putting a bunch of wealthy to moderately wealthy strangers on a ship that holds 2,500 people for 9 straight months is even close to a good or safe idea. Anyway, so if anybody's on the ship and wants to...
How do ships go for that long? Like, do they have to refuel? Like, let's say, like, since they're doing 9 months, do they have to eventually stop at, like, a month or two and then refuel the ship? Like, I think that's what happens, right? That has to happen, in my opinion. I don't think they'd go for 9 months straight. I've never been on a cruise, so that's what I'm asking.
Did anybody see that video that went viral this last week of a woman that literally proved that she got abducted? Her name is Tina, right? She had about 100K followers. I say had because she posted screenshots on X showing how she apparently got banned. But she got banned right in the midst of her video going viral. I think it had around like 5 million views the last time that I looked at it. But on the video that went viral though, hopefully she gets her account back. I mean, this is actually pretty crazy. She set up cameras outside of her house in different locations to catch different angles of her house, because she kept talking about having these dreams that felt like real life to her. Apparently she's had these since she was a child, which I've heard this from many other individuals as well, but apparently she was surrounded by these voices that were speaking in a language of which she'd never heard before. But she was also talking about them implanting something inside of her skin, which is fucking insane because she actually showed this spot, right? And it doesn't look like a birthmark or anything, which is crazy because it literally looks kind of like mine. Like, I don't know if you can see that right there. Yeah, right there. Fucking weird. It's always tripped me out, man. I never actually thought of like getting an x-ray or something done. But anyways, this isn't about me. But then she was talking about having to wear this weird ass helmet that she described to have like anti-gravity like qualities. Crazy shit. But what I noticed was really interesting in her videos before her account actually got banned was that she had a couple of videos of where she recorded this huge ass owl that sat on a branch outside of her window just staring in. Crazy shit, but since she's always felt like she's been abducted since she was little, her and her husband chose to set up cameras around the house and record at night. But this is where shit got really intense because on every single camera, okay, there were 6 cameras around like 2 or 3 a.m. I can't remember, I can't specifically remember what was on those videos, it was pretty small. But she sped up to the point around 2 or 3 a.m. and this is where the cameras started glitching the fuck out and they actually blacked out for about 5 minutes. But when one came back on, you could see not only like a huge shadow just drift over the house. And I shit you not, a lot of you probably saw that video as well. It was like a giant ship, but it wasn't circular like a normal UFO. It was like triangular, you could see a series of lights. It just slowly hovered over the house and then went upward at a faster pace and then all of a sudden shot into the sky like a fucking missile. It's really interesting though, because when I lived in Colorado, I had the privilege of having 2 experiences of my own of seeing 2 UFOs. One was over Denver airport. That in itself was fucking insane. It was around 5 a.m. and this thing just shot over Denver airport. I mean, the power to the entire airport literally went out. They had to cancel so many flights for like 6 hours. But the 2 that I saw in Colorado, they were circular. They weren't triangular, you know? And I obviously know that there's certain technology that, you know, I mean, I had the privilege, my dad was actually a warrant for in the Navy, and I actually had the privilege of going inside of Cheyenne Mountain down to a very extensive level. And my dad was probably not supposed to tell me about some shit that went on down there, but let's just say that there's a lot of shit that you have probably never seen in your entire life. We'll save that conversation for another time because I really wanted to talk about what her husband talked about. Because her husband said the morning after, and I tried to save this fucking video, but it wouldn't let me. I don't know if she had her settings set up in a certain way or whatever, but anyways. But her husband himself said that he felt like he had this dream of which he woke up and apparently went to go check on her. He turned the flashlight on his phone and everything. He was talking about how the dream felt way too real and there's no way that it was a dream. He felt like he was actually up in the middle of the night. But this is where fucking shit gets weird, man. I mean, you could see the panic on this man's face when he was talking into the camera. He said all of a sudden the dream just came to an end. He doesn't have any recognition of anything afterward in that dream. And then when they woke up the next morning, he found his phone on the ground with the fucking flashlight on. He said he woke up directly next to her. She was in a different position of what she was already in, which, I mean, obviously people roll over in their sleep. But to wake up and find that phone with the flashlight still on, I mean, that gives me fucking goosebumps, dude. I really hope she gets her account back because that was one of the most shocking series of videos I think I've ever seen on TikTok. And if you saw it yourself, then you understand my reaction and theirs at that. I mean, what if, you know? How would you really know? But I don't know, man. I can't find any duets or stitches of these videos. I don't know if she had like privacy settings or something on. But I know thousands of you had to have seen at least one of those videos. I mean, if you did, please comment in the comment section down below. All I'm saying is you could tell if somebody's being genuine. You could tell if their body language. I mean, these people were genuinely terrified.
Famous autopsies on February 8th of 2007, Anna Nicole Smith is found dead in her hotel room in the Bahamas. She was just 39 years old. Her autopsy was performed that following day, and she was rolled in measuring 71 inches tall. Her COD was acute combined drug intoxication. Here are all the drugs that were found in her system. I'm not even going to try to pronounce them all. I would just end up butchering them all, so you can read them here. She had infection in her spleen. Her heart was mildly discolored. She had a bloody fluid found in her stomach, and her thyroid was inflamed. There was edema in her lungs and incisions on her butt and thighs, specifically on her left cheek. There was abscesses, but on both there was extensive scarring. Went on to take cultures from these abscesses, and they did grow bacteria. Anna had struggled with substance abuse and depression for a long time. She'd lost her husband in 1995. This really took a toll on her, and then it really got dark for her when she lost her son in September of 2006 to a drug overdose. On top of all this, she was treated very poorly by a lot of people around her and in the media, and I truly hope that she is now resting in peace.
Imagine one day living your life and then boom, the universe opens you up, you see all this light, and your consciousness starts expanding. And although this sounds crazy, this is the science behind what's called spontaneous spiritual awakenings. A fascinating study looked at over 150 people's spiritual awakening stories. And no, there was no use of psychedelics, drugs, or other substances. And the universal themes of these experiences was that they felt connected to a universal source energy that was full of love, bliss, and intelligence. So here's the science behind this. These people scored higher on what's called temporal brain liability, which is a measure of the part of your brain which is more sensitive to these altered states of consciousness. And this is the part of the brain that is connected to deja vu, near-death experiences, and other mystical events. So people who score higher in temporal lobe liability basically are more primed to be in touch with these higher altered states of consciousness. Here's the thing, this doesn't only include regular people. Another study looked at scientists and academics that also had these spiritual awakenings. And in the study, they say that these spiritual awakenings are more common, predictable, and healing than we think. Where 98% of these scientists reported major improvements in their life, key takeaway here is that these mystical experiences are not woo-woo. Rather than being judged and misdiagnosed, these experiences are not breakdowns, rather they are breakthroughs.
An unprecedented in-flight emergency in Belize captured on camera. Take a look at this. Police say an American citizen hijacked a small plane. This was yesterday. The man stabbed 2 passengers and the pilot before being shot by one of the injured passengers. The whole drama in the skies took nearly 2 hours. NBC's Kathy Park joins us with the very latest. Kathy, what exactly happened here?
Yeah, Jose, this certainly was a wild and disturbing story. It all began playing out Thursday morning, 8:30 local time. You had 14 passengers, 2 crew members who were on board the plane known as the Tropic Air. They were flying from Corozal and was headed to San Pedro when authorities say the plane was actually hijacked by a man who has now been identified as Akinwale Taylor. As you mentioned, things took a very violent turn because officials say Taylor stabbed 2 passengers and the pilot, and ultimately one of those wounded passengers actually shot and killed Taylor. The plane circled the air for nearly 2 hours before touching down safely, which is just incredible. Here's more from officials about the incident and the hijacker. Take a listen.
Police received information that there was a Tropic Air plane that departed the Corozal Municipal Airstrip, and shortly after taking off from the airstrip, the plane was hijacked by a passenger on board who has been identified as one Akinwale Taylor.
We don't know the situation. We don't know why he wanted to go back to the United States or what was the reason, and I mean, for right now, we don't have any more information on that.
And Jose, the Belize commissioner actually said that Taylor was a U.S. military veteran, and our NBC affiliate in St. Louis spoke to the nephew of the alleged hijacker who saw his uncle about 2 weeks ago. He said that Taylor is from the St. Louis area. He's a married father of 4 and showed no signs of mental health issues. So all of this right now is just a real big shock to their family. Meanwhile, a school official in that area has confirmed to NBC News that Taylor was a teacher and also coached high school track in that community. And Jose, as you can imagine, this is still an ongoing investigation here in the U.S., also in Belize. And right now, officials don't have a motive behind the hijacking.
Dude, way too much aviation incidents are going on, bro. That's making me scared to fly, I'm not gonna lie.
I seen a video of that mama who lost her 10-day-old baby in a house fire. Or so she thought. Bitch, why the fuck her house catch on fire? Once the detectives in the fire, you feel me, 911 people come and shit, bitch, they don't see no baby remains, but her baby is gone. So they telling her maybe because the baby was so tiny, only 10 days old, the bones didn't come out how they supposed to if it was a regular person who caught on fire and passed away. And they basically told this lady like, yes, I'm sorry, your daughter passed in the fire. The lady is like, I know I'm not fucking delusional because I guess she ran in the house while the fire was just starting up and she went to the crib to get her baby before it got too big and the baby wasn't in the crib. But everybody's like saying like, oh, it's mother's delusion. Like she's just delusional. This is a crazy situation. Like they're just basically letting her say whatever story she wants to say. In their head, she's making it up. But in her head, she's dead the fuck serious. Boom. 5, 6, 7 years pass. This lady has no daughter. Daughter gone. Or so she thought. She go to a little family function. I don't know if it was with her husband or her ex-husband. But long story short, she's still cool with the family of whoever the baby daddy was. So she goes to that family function. They eating, they drinking, they having a good time. She sees this little girl who's 5, 6, 7 years old, around that age. And she looking at the little girl like, damn, like that really do look like my daughter. Mind you, that had to be mother's intuition because I don't know how you could tell if somebody's your kid from newborn. Like it was only 10 days old. This baby has developed so much, but she knew that was her fucking daughter. She didn't want to scare the daughter off though. So she goes over to play with the little girl and gets a strand of her hair and keeps it. That motherfucker act like she pulling gum out of the baby hair, but really keep the strands of the hair and take it to go get
know that on August 15, 1977, astronomers in Ohio captured a mysterious radio signal from deep space that was so strong and unique it almost left researchers speechless. The signal, named WOW, was the intensely strong burst of radio waves that lasted about 72 seconds, which is unusually long for normal radio waves coming from space. What made this signal even more intriguing is that unlike most radio signals, this signal was detected at a frequency of 1420 megahertz, meaning it was a narrowband frequency, and such signals are not natural, but almost a form of communication. However, after studying more about this signal, scientists figured out it came from the constellation of Sagittarius, specifically the region near the star group M55. But before the scientists could confirm any of this, the signal disappeared suddenly and was never detected again. It could be possible that the signal was interrupted, or the civilization was destroyed by another civilization. We may never know about this signal ever again, and can only wonder if we are truly alone in this universe. If you find this video interesting, comment down your thoughts and follow for more.
Pope Francis passed away at the age of 88 this morning from a bout of pneumonia. And this is, Pope Francis was seen as a bright spot in a dark world. He tirelessly championed the marginalized and the forgotten. He challenged powerful institutions and humble parishes alike to welcome the stranger, protect the planet, and walk in solidarity with the poor. Pope Francis also sparred with conservative Americans over their treatment of the LGBT and immigrants several times throughout his tenure. He was also the first pope to address a joint session of Congress, and his visit to America was historic. Right? And this is, he once said, it's hypocritical to call yourself a Christian and to chase away a refugee or someone seeking help, someone who is hungry or thirsty. Toss out someone who is in need of my help. If I say I am Christian but do these things, I'm a hypocrite. And Pope Francis didn't just talk the talk, he also walked the walk. He took refugees into the Vatican and he washed the feet of prisoners regularly. Even on his last day, he reminded us that holiness isn't distant or inaccessible, but found in daily acts of kindness, courage, and mercy.
Most Americans don't know that the entire east side of the US is technically an island. From a geographic perspective, everything east of the Mississippi River is almost completely surrounded by water. To the east, there's the Atlantic Ocean. To the south, the Gulf of Mexico. And to the west, the massive Mississippi River system, which stretches from Minnesota all the way down to Louisiana. This river acts like a giant inland wall, cutting off nearly 40% of the country. In fact, the Mississippi is so wide and deep that before bridges were built, crossing it was almost like crossing a sea. And when you zoom out, the land between the Atlantic and the Mississippi is enclosed enough that it meets some definitions of an island, land surrounded by water on all sides. So next time you look at a map of the US, realize the East Coast isn't just a region, it's kind of its own island.
I mean, I see what he's saying, but north of that, there's not really too much water. I mean, there's the Great Lakes, but like other than that, there's not really any sort of river that's like from Minnesota where he pointed all the way to freaking Maine.
Wildlife photographer left stunned after capturing a rare orca on film.
I feel like since orcas are smart, they're kind of like humans. I feel like those orcas in the pod kind of make fun of that dude. They either one make fun of him or two look at him and like a god, just because he's different.
There are these experiments where they trained people to experience anxiety, but as determination, because exactly the same physical state could be experienced completely different. And what they discovered is that at first it's really hard, but you practice, and then eventually becomes really automatic. So the first thing to understand is that
Dr. Lisa Feldman-Barrett is a world-leading neuroscientist.
Her groundbreaking research reveals that emotions like anxiety and trauma are built by the brain.
And we have the power to control them.
the story is that you're born with these innate emotion circuits, but you're not born with the ability to control them. That's false. Really what's happening is that your brain is not reacting, it's predicting. And every action you take, every emotion you have is a combination of the remembered past, including any trauma. And so you don't have a sense of agency about it because it happens really automatically, faster than you can blink your eyes.
How does this change how we should treat trauma?
Sometimes in life, you are responsible for changing something, not because you're to blame, but because you're the only person who can. I mean, I had a daughter who was clinically depressed, was getting D's in school, she wasn't sleeping, she was miserable. At first, she was so resistant, but then she made the decision that she wanted to be helped.
And did she recover?
Yes, she did. So if you want to change who you are, what you feel, understanding these basic operating principles is the key to living a meaningful life.
So what is step one to being able to make that change?
So
your heart stops as he turns toward your hiding spot. He charges at you, and you know you're about to become his next snack. But just as his jaws are about to close around you, whoosh, your mother pushes you out into the open ocean. For a split second, you feel relief, until you hear another whoosh behind you. Oh no, your murderous brother just got birthed too. You spin around, expecting him to charge at you, but something's different. He looks just as scared as you are. Both of you stare in awe at your mother, her entire body covered in thick armor plates like a swimming tank. Meanwhile, you're about as threatening as a blob of jelly, your soft body completely defenseless. Before either of you can process your vulnerability, your mother disappears into the dark water. No goodbye, no defense tips, not even a try not to get eaten. Great. You're alone in the open ocean with your cannibalistic brother. A shadow passes overhead, and both of you dart for the same hiding spot. Turns out nothing brings siblings together quite like the threat of being eaten by something bigger. The dark shadow passes, but neither of you move. After what feels like forever, you peek out from your hiding spot. Your brother does the same, and for a moment you just stare at each other. Funny how quickly someone goes from "I'm going to eat you" to "please don't leave me alone" when they're scared. But there's no time for a family reunion. Your stomach is already reminding you that you haven't eaten since, well, ever. You drift away from your brother, both of you too hungry to care about each other anymore. That's when you spot it, a small turtle floating lazily near the surface. Perfect first target. You charge forward, mouth open for the kill. But the turtle's been playing this game longer than you. One flip of its fins and it dives down faster than you can follow. What happens next is just embarrassing. Your mouth opens so fast it creates some kind of underwater vacuum cleaner effect. Instead of turtle soup, you get a mouthful of sand and what might be a dead jellyfish. Pfft, you spit everything out, coughing up grit and trying not to die of shame. But wait, that suction thing. Maybe it's not a design flaw after all. Your specialized jaw joints are creating one of nature's first vacuum cleaners, turning your armored head into a prehistoric Hoover. You spot a smaller fish nearby. This time you try something different. Instead of charging in like a maniac, you drift closer slowly. When you're just close enough, you open your mouth and, slurp, the fish gets sucked right in like it's being pulled by an invisible string. First meal, success. Sure, it's not as impressive as the prey your parents hunt, but hey, you're learning. 3 days pass as you hide near the surface, catching whatever small prey you can find. That's when you notice something strange. Your skin feels different. Hard patches are developing, especially around your head, like you're growing your own helmet. But there's a catch. This natural helmet makes it impossible to turn your head and check your surroundings. You have to turn your whole body just to look behind you, and this is just the beginning. You've got 10 times more armor coming, covering your entire body. Days turn into weeks, and your body keeps changing. What started as small patches of hardness around your head is spread like a living suit of armor. First, thick plates cover your skull completely. Then your neck and shoulders start feeling heavier as armor spreads there too. It's like watching yourself transform into a living tank piece by piece. A month passes, and now you're covered in overlapping plates from head to tail, each one harder than rock. Your head alone is encased in armor so thick it could stop a great whale's bite. The trade-off? You move like you're wearing a full suit of medieval armor underwater. Just checking if something's behind you means turning your entire body around. Your neck is basically locked in place by all this protection. But it's not just armor you're growing. You can feel the power building in your jaw muscles as your armor thickens. You might only be a few months old, but you're already a swimming weapon. All this new protection has made you bold. Maybe too bold. You find yourself drifting into deeper waters, territories you wouldn't have dared enter before. That's when you spot it. An ancient shark, about twice your size, tearing into something. The smell of blood fills the water, and your stomach growls. Maybe you can steal a bite while it's distracted. You drift closer, confidence growing with each paddle of your armored fins. The shark's so focused on its meal it hasn't noticed you yet. Just a little closer. Crack. Your jaw snaps shut on the closest piece of meat, and that's when you learn something amazing. Your bite snaps shut in less than a 50th of a second, creating a pressure wave that stuns nearby prey. Before the shark can even turn, you've already sliced clean through its prey. But now you've got its attention. It spins towards you, clearly not happy about sharing. It charges, teeth aiming for your neck, but instead of flesh, it gets a mouthful of armor. You feel the impact, but your plates hold. The shark pulls back, probably wondering what kind of freak of nature it just tried to eat. Now it's your turn. You might be slow to turn, but your jaws are anything but. You open your mouth and snap. The water actually shockwaves around your bite, like a tiny underwater explosion. The shark barely dodges, losing a chunk of its fin in the process. It takes one look at its missing fin, then at your scissor-like jaws, and decides this meal isn't worth the trouble. As you watch it swim away, you realize something. You're not just protected by this armor, you're powered by it. The same plates that make it hard to move give your bite enough force to slice through pretty much everything. After sending that shark packing, you learn something important. Your armor might be great for fighting off big predators, but eating is a whole different game. Your massive armored body isn't exactly built for chasing down lunch. Every time you spot some tasty-looking fish, they've disappeared before you can even turn your tank-like body around. But then you remember that weird suction thing you can do. The next time you spot a school of fish, instead of attempting a clumsy chase, you just open your mouth. Whoosh! The water rushes in like a vacuum, pulling in not just one fish, but half the school, along with a nice helping of sand and seaweed. Not your most elegant meal, but hey, when you're hungry, who cares about table manners? Months pass, and you're getting better. Now, at nearly full size, you're bigger than a great white shark, stretching over 20 feet long. Your armored head alone is the size of a car, and your bite force? If ships existed back then, you could have chomped through their metal hull like it was made of cardboard. In these ancient seas, there aren't many creatures that can match your size. Those long-necked plesiosaurs, they see you coming and swim the other way. Most other armored fish are half your size. They're more like snacks than competition. The only things that make you slightly nervous are the massive eurypterids, sea scorpions the size of crocodiles. But even they think twice before messing with your scissor jaws. Swimming through your territory one day, you notice something different. The water feels warmer, and there are more of your kind around than usual. That's when you spot her. Nearly twice your size and covered in armor so thick it makes yours look like a cheap costume. Turns out female Dunkleosteus are bigger than males, because of course they are. You're not the only one who's noticed her. Other males are showing up, all of us probably thinking the same thing. What follows is possibly the least graceful courtship in ocean history. Imagine several living tanks trying to impress a bigger tank. You try showing off your jaw strength, snapping at the water to create those signature shockwaves. She seems about as impressed as you'd expect. The mating itself is quick and awkward. Try getting romantic when you're both covered in armor plates and can barely turn your heads. But hey, at least you don't eat your mate like some other fish do. Once it's done, she swims off without so much as a goodbye. Turns out even prehistoric fish weren't big on commitment. Your life of chomping through anything that moves starts catching up with you. The hunting grounds that used to be full of prey are getting emptier by the day. Turns out being an unstoppable killing machine has a downside. Eventually, you run out of things to kill. You start seeing new types of fish in these waters. Smaller, faster, more adaptable. They don't have fancy armor or buzzsaw jaws, but they can survive on the tiny prey you can't even catch. Your specialized weapons, the armor, the bone-crushing bite, the suction feeding, they're all useless against schools of fish too small to bother with. Your massive size and armor that once made you invincible are now just dead weight. You find yourself swimming further and further for fewer and fewer meals. Other Dunkleosteus are disappearing too. Some starve to death, their armored bodies sinking to the ocean floor. Others try hunting in waters too shallow and get stranded like beached whales in metal suits. One day, exhausted from hunger, you spot something big enough to eat. But as you approach, you realize it's another Dunkleosteus, even more desperate than you. For a moment, you both just float there, two living tanks facing the same grim reality. We've eaten ourselves into extinction. Nature's final joke. The ultimate predator wasn't killed by something bigger or stronger. We just got too good at being bad.
The Pope is dead. So what happens now? Pope Francis was the head of the largest single religious denomination on Earth with 1.4 billion followers. So to give you an idea of the enormous processes that have just been set into motion, there is an entire 400-page handbook that's only purpose is to guide religious officials through the countless rites and rituals of the funeral process. There's even a traditional method to verify that a pope has died, which is calling the pope's name 3 times with no response. Pope Francis, however, overhauled the entire book last year to simplify the processes. His reasoning was to emphasize that a pope should not be seen as a powerful man of this world, rather simply a disciple of Christ. Just 2 of the many changes that he made was that 1, he will no longer be placed in the traditional 3 coffins made of cypress, lead, and oak, and 2, he also didn't want to be buried in the Vatican like most, rather in the Basilica of St. Mary Major, which is about half an hour across Rome. The Pope's fisherman ring will be ceremonially destroyed, traditionally to prevent its use in forging documents, but also to symbolize the end of his authority. The Vatican has now also begun an official mourning period known as Novendiale, which lasts 9 days. Pope Francis's body will soon be placed in St. Peter's Basilica, where soon tens of thousands are expected to file past and pay respects in person. Following that, a grand funeral mass will be held in the same basilica, where countless world leaders and important figures will attend, and it will also be broadcast worldwide. Then, after all of that, the intense process of choosing a new pope will begin. And I say intense because high-ranking officials in the Catholic Church from around the world will make their way to Rome and go into what's called a conclave. Now, the word conclave itself comes from the Latin word cum clave, meaning with a key. And that's actually a nod to the old practice of locking these Catholic officials away until a decision is reached. That tradition began in the 13th century after one of the elections dragged on for nearly 3 years. So people in the town literally locked them in and removed the roof to hurry them up. And today's conclaves still honor that same spirit of seclusion. Once inside the Sistine Chapel, those officials cut off all communication from the outside world. No phones, no internet, no news, all to make sure that the deliberations are only guided by prayer and discussion. Now, who they choose and why is even more interesting. So I've made an even longer video and that'll go up on YouTube this evening. See you there.
Yeah, man. R.I.P. the Pope. I mean, I wonder who the next pope will be. It's going to be like a whole process to choose the next pope. It's going to be interesting to see what we have coming, because apparently one of the dudes said when the pope died, the world's supposed to end, so we'll see.
Thank you all for watching this here video. Please like and